in the Brewer area. So these are all specifically streets projects again, but projects that are included in Sedona in Motion also include additional 179 projects, the major street improvement, or I'm sorry, connections. Forest Road is one of those, and then, as I mentioned, all those that are focused in the Brewer Road area, but that's a whole program in itself. And then we have minor road connections. Those are looking at the citywide, where we need better connectivity between neighborhoods for things like evacuation and secondary points of access. And then we also, in our transportation master plan, looked at, in general, improvements that can be made in West Sedona on 89A. So that's kind of a general look at everything that street related that we've included in the transportation master plan. So I think now we want to find out if there's a specific topic that someone would like to cover.
Okay, thank you, Andy. Mark, you're the first one, hand up. I love it. Go ahead. What's your question?
As you know me, it's probably not a question, it's more of a statement.
Okay.
I think that I'm a civil engineer like Mr. Dickey is, and I'm used to solving problems. But the issue here, I think, is that we're trying to treat a symptom, and by going through large public work projects to increase capacity. And my big concern about that is, like in many communities, that creates induced demand. You create more capacity, more people use the roads, you create more parking, more people use the parking. And on average, there's 3.5 million is the number that gets quoted of people visit Sedona annually, but many of them are people that stay here for an average of over 3 days. So there's about 16,000 on average visitor days that people spend in Sedona, which, if you look at the very high capacity days, it overwhelms the capacity of the city. So my question statement is, should we look more at ways to control visitation on peak days versus trying to have large public work projects that try to ease that capacity and move people through the city, which will ultimately probably fail because the capacity will be reached again with more visitation. So that's my question.
Thanks, Mark. Andy, do you want to address the kind of projects versus limiting visitation?
Yeah, definitely. And that's a great question, Mark. What I would point out is that the concept, that was brought forward in Sedona in Motion was that the street projects looked at existing bottlenecks that we needed to solve. Whether we end up with induced demand, which can be argued whether or not that's appropriate in Sedona, I won't go into that, but we're certainly going to see additional traffic sometime in the future. We're not going to necessarily see less. I think there's no argument there, whether that comes from just population increase or some attraction to Northern Arizona that doesn't exist today, or whatever the case. But at the same time, do you not address those bottlenecks because you're going to have additional traffic in the future? The concept is that we solve those bottleneck issues and get the capacity of our infrastructure to where it needs to be without making major impacts on our environment. And then we switch to a focus of management of traffic. So that gets into those parking and transit and bike and ped project areas that focus on how do you more efficiently get traffic across the city by reducing trips, making connections, putting parking in a consolidated location, making it efficient to get to the parking, and then controlling our traffic through the transit system by fee structures and parking fee structures and things like that. So that's the concept that Sedona in Motion is based on. So my answer would be that you need to look at both.
Thank you, Andy.
You bet.
I hope that got at that, Mark. I know that that's a big question, and it seems like it's a multiple, what we could call a multi-pronged answer, right? There's lots of things that play into answering that question. So thank you, Andy. Okay, I have 4 hands up. First is going to be Joe, and then Kathy, you're going to be after Joe.
Firstly, what's the Portal Ranger Brewer connection?
That's a project that would connect Portal Lane across Soldier Wash to Brewer Road. The benefit and the reason for that project is when I talked about Schnelby Hill roundabout earlier and the left turns and U-turn movements that occur in that roundabout. If you look at Portal Lane, every single vehicle that exits Portal Lane has to turn and head south. So if that vehicle has a destination that's West Sedona or Uptown, in other words, to the north, they are required to make a U-turn at some point, and most often that's in Schnebly Hill Road or roundabout. So what that project aims to do is make a connection to take those trips off of 179 and make it more efficiently end up where it's supposed to go.
Great. Joe, did you have a follow-up to that? Because you said first, did you have a second?
Yeah. My second is, however we're going to figure it out, we need to go from West Sedona to 179. And it cannot have anything to do with the Y or Cooks Hill or Brewer or any of those streets. It has to be further, whatever direction that is, west of all those things. And it has to be done. I know it's going to be hard. I know there are problems, but it has to be done. It is the only way to deal with this congestion. And I also agree about the roundabout by Tlaquepaque. But if we got, and if there was a way to go from West Sedona directly to 179, that problem would go away, in my opinion. Thank you.
Thank you, Joe. Appreciate it. Okay. I hope that the clarification on what that connection was made. Thank you, Andy. So Joe, if you would like, you can put your hand down, and then we're going to move to Kathy.
Oh,
That's okay.
Okay.
Yeah, no
Yeah.
problem. Yep.
So, Andy, my question is, because I don't go back as far memory-wise in this, and I'm hoping you can fill in the blank, but on the Forest Road connection, which I think is really a good thing for the city, absolutely. You know that, I support it. For evacuation, for traffic control, for a multitude of reasons, it's great to have a way to get from Uptown to West Sedona bypassing the Y. But the question follows up to Joe's question about going through from 89A in West Sedona somehow to 179. When Forest Road came about, it was because the will started to get there of making these connections. And what I'm wondering is, was there a thought process of it can't be done preceding the fact that it could be done? And is that where we are regarding an 89A to 179 connection as well? Is it maybe that we will move to a place where we think it can be done? Is it only a matter of the money that it would take for the environmental concerns? I'm very concerned about the environmental impacts and concerns, and we would have to look at them closely, obviously. But is it something that can be mitigated? Is it just a question of money, or what is it? Why is the it can't be done process thought in place for that? And was that something that we've overcome in the past, for example, like on the Forest Road situation?
Well, I guess the first thing I'd want to clarify is, are we definitely not talking about Red Rock Crossing? Because that would
I am
be,
not talking about Red Rock Crossing. I'm talking more, I think, and the area would have to be something that we would be looking to you, engineering, to, make a suggestion on, but Sunset or Shelby are two places, something that goes around Airport Mesa. It seems there have been a couple of residents that have floated various ideas there. Another thing that that one makes sense to me. I personally always thought that there should probably be something that looks at Art Barn Road as well to 179, but that's not West Sedona, and that doesn't help the Schnebly Hill traffic circle. So focusing on Sunset, Shelby, or any of those south streets, south of 89A, those areas that could connect around the airport over to 179.
well, the first thing I would say is that, you want to consider at least the challenges with that. And one of them is going to be the visual impact on Airport Mesa. I think while a lot of people think that it's a no-brainer, just cut a road across this mesa, there's also a pretty good size of a group of people that would say, don't you dare impact what it looks like on Airport Mesa.
Andy, I don't think we're talking about going over the mesa. I think we're talking about going around the mesa, just to clarify.
Okay, so you're still within Forest Service land. So all those federal requirements, environmental requirements, those are challenges. I think they should be acknowledged because you're talking about years worth of issues to overcome. And then cost, yes, it is a factor, but the reason it's a factor is because when we first looked at the transportation master plan, what we were trying to focus our highest priorities on were the things that we could accomplish reasonably. So that meant within a reasonable amount of cost and a reasonable amount of time. And because our staff only has so much as well, our whole city government only has so much capacity to move projects forward. We felt that, we meaning the whole city felt it was most appropriate to put those projects that had the biggest bang for the buck ahead of everything else. So, I know you're not talking about Red Rock Crossing, but that was a consideration that that the city looked at with the transportation master plan and said, if, for instance, the county's on board, then maybe that is a project that could be pursued. The county went after it and looked to the community to see if they had a appetite for it, and they said they didn't. And so that was made a lower priority. That doesn't mean that project won't ever happen, but we have a long list of priorities that we do need to complete and put in place that will have a positive impact on reducing congestion and impacts on traffic. Again, even if you're looking at Shelby and Sunset, where you come into 179 is a huge consideration, because where you get constant backups on 179, if you bring that connection into the middle of that point, it negates the improvement that you're trying to implement. If you're going to have to get into the middle of congestion anyway, then it doesn't make sense to make a connection there. So yeah, I don't have an exact location that would make sense to connect that to, but I do know there would be huge cost, huge requirements through the federal process that would have to be overcome. So you're talking years and years and tens of millions of dollars at least to accomplish it.
Thank you so much, Andy. That was comprehensive, and it sounds like it's not off the table. It sounds like it's on the priority list. It might not be top tier priority. I just want to make sure we have 3 more people and we are out of this breakout room at 6:52. So we have 6 minutes. Laura, you're up next. I just want to make sure we get through, these specific questions you guys have your hands raised for. Go ahead, Laura. You're on mute.
Thanks, Carrie. Andy, I noticed on this map, by the way, my last name is Ruman, Laura Ruman. You don't show anything about the connection road from Dry Creek on Sanborn to Thunder Mountain. Was that not part of the Sedona in Motion plan?
A connection on Sanborn.
Well, no, you know how you did a sidewalk thing on Sanborn and you took it all the way to Coffee
Oh.
Pot to Dry Creek. Was
That's-
that part of the Sedona motion?
It is, but it's part of, these are all street focused projects. It's part of the bike and ped. The earlier version of this map had that project on there.
Okay, my next question, not in little dash anywhere, is of course, I know that there's an upcoming meeting regarding the Andante possible pathway plus hopefully a street sidewalk along there. The neighborhood that I'm in is that neighborhood, and I've had a couple of neighbors keep coming to me that in the last 24 hours that said, you're trying to make one of the streets one way. Now, I informed them about this meeting, but I don't know where they're getting that information. And I want to be able to counter it with fact as opposed to hysteria. So maybe you can enlighten me.
Well, in looking at the options for a route for that improvement, that is an option, is that Concord could be converted into a one-way street, which would make additional space to make beautification as well as these bike ped type improvements. So it's an option. It's not something that's been identified as a selected option. It's something that's put out to the neighborhood to say, is this something you would like, or would you like a different option? That's really where it's at. We haven't started design on it. It's in the very early stages, just reaching out to the public to see what the appetite is for the project.
Thanks,
And
Andy. And I believe is it correct that Sandy has that meeting tomorrow night?
Yes.
Okay, great. So that might be a more specific question for her as well, Laura, to follow up with tomorrow.
So I wanted to be able to at least a little bit of intervention. Thanks so
Perfect.
much.
Thank
You
you,
bet.
Laura. Okay, Sam, you're up. And if you can turn on your camera, it would be great to see your face, but if you can't, I get it.
I don't have a camera on my laptop. Sorry about that. It's
No worries.
I've got it set up. It's kind of goofy. Hi, Andy.
Hey,
Just
Sam.
a couple quick things. Andy and I have worked together in the past. First has to deal with Uptown. Is there a plan in the near future to expand the northbound lanes of 89A? Because the southbound expansion was so successful, as you mentioned. And I know about the northbound challenge. And the second question is, Cooks Hill consistently seems to be a problem because of Tlaquepaque and/or the Schnebly Hill roundabout. Is there any way to work with traffic to ensure that the Tlaquepaque flow southbound is somehow enhanced or improved, either through manual intervention of TCAs or some other process? Thank you.
So the first part of your question, yes, there's a project in design right now that's looking at extending a second northbound lane up to the Jordan roundabout. There's also another project that was recently under design. It's now complete and in construction, where we're converting the staging zone just it's just south of Amara Lane into a right turn lane. These are both
Thank you.
northbound improvements. Yeah, as a TCA, I know you'd appreciate that.
Yeah.
So if you head uptown today, you'll see that project's already under construction and will be complete by this spring. But yeah, the first part of your question is the northbound improvements are under design currently. Did I miss something?
Yeah, the Tlaquepaque part for
Oh,
Cooks Hill.
sorry. I knew I missed something. Well, I mean, we are controlling traffic, as you know, when there is congestion. But the biggest contributor to help with that particular congestion that you're talking about is going to be the Forest Road connection. When we're able to take trips out of the Y and bring them directly to Uptown and around the Y, it's going to make a huge improvement on the operation of that intersection and address specifically the congestion that you're talking about.
Thank you.
You bet.
Thank you, Andy. Last, we're getting through all of them. Excellent. Monica, we have, I think, like a minute left. So you're up. Take yourself off mute.
Okay, hi. Just to follow up, is the Portal Ranger Brewer connection and the Brewer Losob connection and the like 4 or 5 way intersection at Brewer Ranger, are those all a go? Or is that just ideas that are being kicked around?
They're all in process. The Losob to Brewer connection is actually built and complete. The other two you mentioned, the intersection itself, as well as Portal to Brewer, those are in design, and they're in process of being developed currently. So they're not complete with design, but they're in process.
Great.
Yeah.
Andy, just let us all know that we actually get 2 more minutes. So
Oh.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to rush, folks. Apologies. I just wanted to see that everyone who had their hand up got their question addressed. So with those last 2 minutes, is there an additional question? Someone want to raise their hand or an additional clarification for Andy at this point before we go back to the general session? Oh, Holly, go ahead.
Thank you. I was curious, this is actually a question for Mark Tenbrook. In the question that you asked, Mark, about the balance and about controlling the capacity through less demand, did you have an idea you wanted to share with the group?
I don't think Mark is still on the call.
Okay, well then that's the end of my question.
Well, we can pose that to him. He might have left this group to go join a different group if he had additional questions that pertain to transit or to bike and pedestrian. But we'll make sure to relay that, Holly. I'm sure that if he does have a suggestion or some feedback on that, it'll come out.
Yeah, thank you.
Absolutely. Anyone else with the last minute we have here before we go back? If not, I want to give a huge thank you to Andy for fielding all those questions. I hope that his clarifications and answers to your questions got you all what you needed. This session, in addition to the large group sessions, will be are being recorded and they'll be posted, as well as we're hoping to have kind of a synthesis document of the questions that were asked and the answers to those. So
Thank you, Andy. Thank you, Carrie.
of course, if you guys now, since I'm not sharing, you guys can see at the bottom of your screen, it says leave room. That is where it'll kind of shoot you back to the main session. So feel free to do that and we'll all be back in there in a minute.